I spent 2 months in Nigeria, so I flew to Nigeria, and then I met a friend who was working in Nigeria in VSO, voluntary service overseas, and with him we drove down in a taxi, which is a hair-raising ride in itself, a couple of 100 miles down to Benue State, which is sort of south-central Nigeria. My first impression when I stepped off the plane was the heat and the smells, the unusual smells of Africa, and the lively nature of living there, people hustling and bustling and running around, and cars driving here, there and everywhere, and motorbikes driving here, there and everywhere. I worked in one place with some Canadian nuns, and I worked in another place in a clinic with some Egyptian doctors and Irish nurses. And what really struck me at the time was the amount of disease that could have been so easily and simply and cheaply treated, but wasn't through lack of resources, lack of expertise. So I was determined then that I wanted to go back and work abroad after I qualified. Yeah, I was seeing things like neonatal tetanus, I saw leprosy, I saw pyomyositis, where people would spontaneously get these large abscesses in the muscle, malaria, amoebic dysentery, all the standard diseases that you see in developing countries. What it did for me was put in me a desire to go back and do something again, which is why I then decided to train myself in the specialties which would enable me to work usefully in the tropics. So after I qualified, I did a couple of pediatric jobs, and I learned how to do things like neonatal resuscitation. I learned how to put intravenous lines into a baby's scalp, which if you can do that, you can put an intravenous line into anybody. I went and did obstetrics and gynecology, and I learned how to do cesarean sections, and I learned how to do spinal anaesthetics and epidural anaesthetics. Nowadays you probably wouldn't be allowed to do that, but this was a good few years ago. And then I did a diploma in tropical medicine, and that then equipped me to go and work usefully abroad. I would recommend anyone to go and work abroad and work in different environments to the NHS, different environments to Western medicine. The whole way of thinking, the whole way of acting when you're working abroad, particularly working in the developing world, is so very much different to what it is in the NHS.